It was a Larry Barker investigation that led to criminal charges and an ankle bracelet for one New Mexico man. But his past was not enough to keep him from teaching in an APS classroom. How did it happen? News 13's Larry Barker investigates the classroom crisis.
The notion that we have somebody in a classroom wearing an ankle bracelet is astounding to me.
You can have people who have currently pending felony charges, rapists, murderers, apply for jobs without the school districts being able to ask. That's right.
It's inexcusable. It's not role modeling. It's a disaster.
In fact, it's unbelievable. How does a high-profile fraud suspect out on bond, awaiting trial on multiple felonies, end up in a public school classroom? Well, as blunders go, this one is a whopper.
Paul Aguilar is the Public Education Deputy Secretary.
There were mistakes made in this case.
There were mistakes made in this case.
Marty Esquivel serves on the APS school board.
Well, I've seen a lot of good and bad over 8 years, but this is truly horrifying. It is outrageous that we would hire a man like this.
We first introduced you to William Kalinowski in 2013. Cal, as his friends called him, was a contractor, Santa Fe's go-to guy for custom home building. He had an award-winning reputation for quality, style, and luxury. But that sterling reputation soured after millions of dollars disappeared and construction projects were abandoned. Some victims were cheated out of their life savings. Michael Delfonso lost $500,000.
He defrauded me. He stole from me. He lied to me. And he bankrupted me.
Stephen Lark's loss, $600,000.
Fraud, deceit, lies, misuse of funds, misappropriation of funds. It's all there.
Doug Strasser lost $250,000.
The money just disappeared, and he's never offered any explanation as to where it went. It's just plain, straight out wrong.
The money wasn't the only thing to disappear. After filing bankruptcy, the luxury home builder vanished. We tracked him down at a rented estate in the seaside village of Duxbury, south of Boston. Back in New Mexico, there was a criminal investigation, and last fall, a Santa Fe grand jury indicted Cal on 10 counts of fraud and embezzlement. He was arrested in Massachusetts and brought back to face felony charges here.
Last fall, Cal bonded out of jail, and he's awaiting trial in the spring. Meanwhile, all of his movements are closely monitored by a court-ordered electronic ankle bracelet.
So where does the indicted contractor hang out? How about the Lyndon B. Johnson Middle School in Albuquerque? Now, he's not a visitor. The man accused of bilking victims out of millions of dollars is today an accredited school teacher. His teaching credentials were issued by the New Mexico Department of Education.
Apparently there were some indictments in place at the time that we were not aware of, and although he indicated that he had some allegations of fraud in his past, we didn't uncover that, and we issued the license.
He did disclose to PED that there were fraud allegations. Did this department follow that up?
The department did not follow up the specific allegations of fraud.
And when Cal's pending charges did not show up on a criminal background check, the Education Department issued him a teaching certificate. Armed with a New Mexico license, Cal went job hunting. First stop, the Santa Fe Public Schools. However, there were just too many red flags, and the school district rejected his application. Next stop, Albuquerque Public Schools. Just 5 months after being charged with 10 felonies, APS hired Cal to teach language arts.
When did you learn that you'd hired a school teacher who was under indictment for fraud and embezzlement?
We learned when you brought it to the school district's attention, Larry.
How did it happen? Well, for starters, APS did not ask Cal about his background because the district was not allowed to ask. You see, there's an obscure state statute on the books that prohibits public agencies from asking job seekers about their criminal history.
On your initial application, can you ask the applicant about pending criminal charges?
So under the current state statute, I think the answer to that is clearly no.
Former State Rep Al Park chaired the House Judiciary Committee in 2010. He says it's a well-intentioned law with an unanticipated loophole.
It does have a loophole in it. There's no question. And the incident that you're talking about right now is a perfect example of that loophole. I mean, this is a person who's been charged with a crime of moral turpitude, embezzlement, fraud, and that's the kind of crime that you want to know about when you're thinking of hiring someone in a position of trust.
Park says the loophole needs to be fixed.
If you have somebody with pending felony charges,
Right.
up to and including first-degree murder, and the case is still pending,
Right.
according to the statute, is that a bar from being a school teacher?
No, it's not a bar, and in fact, they can't consider it until you're a finalist.
But the statute does not take APS off the hook. Before they put Kalinowski in the classroom, a background check showed an arrest warrant. What was the arrest for? Well, no one at APS ever asked.
Here's a guy that had plenty of red flags. He had, a bench warrant. He had a pretty serious criminal indictment. He's wearing an ankle bracelet in the classroom. I mean, this is something that there's really no excuse that we really should have picked up.
Last week, APS placed William Kalinowski on administrative leave pending a review.
Bottom line, does William Kalinowski belong at APS?
He does not. It was a major mistake to hire him. It's a major mistake to have him in our classroom. He is innocent until proven guilty, but it's not the type of individual we want within APS.
Cal's state teaching credentials are also under review.
There were mistakes made. Being teachers and being the public education department, we look for teachable moments. Things did fall through the cracks. We want to identify where they fell through the cracks and make sure our staff is prepared to ensure that they don't fall through in the future.
Larry Barker, KRQE News 13.
We have much more on this story online at krqe.com, including an interactive timeline of events and our previous coverage on the man they call Cal.